Welcome back. According to a Pew Research poll, Mexicans are the largest population of Hispanic origin living in the United States. They account for 62% of the U.S. Hispanic population. Tonight on this Cesar Chávez Day, Scripps reporter Matt Pearl takes a look at one Mexican American in particular who worked tirelessly to make a better life for not only those of Mexican descent, but also for the nearly 16 million Americans currently represented by a union, Cesar Chávez.
Today we celebrate Cesar Chavez.
When it was dedicated as a national monument, President Obama talked about how my father's history and his story is more than the story of farm workers and Latinos. It's really an American story.
American stories are complex. So was Cesar Chavez.
The work was never about wages and conditions. It was first and foremost about respect.
Paul Chavez tells of following his dad to marches and boycotts. In the 60s and 70s, his father was a leader for farm workers, establishing a union, organizing strikes and protests, and fighting for rights for those who had been denied them.
People would work their entire lives, and when their bodies broke down and they were no longer able to work, they had nothing to fall back on. He gave hope and inspiration to people that were in short supply of it.
Cesar Chavez became synonymous with his movement. He followed Martin Luther King Jr.'s example and preached nonviolence. He amplified the voices of his communities, both professionally and culturally. Those communities amplify him today in monuments and museums.
I grew up thinking of Cesar Chavez as a hero, as a saint almost. There was a lot to celebrate about him and about his movement. And there was a lot to critique.
Eladio Bobadilla is a history professor in Kentucky and one of a growing set of voices urging Americans to see a more complicated version of Chavez, beginning with his stance against undocumented immigrants.
Things got really ugly. I mean, at one point, Cesar Chavez and his union created their own border patrol, the so-called wet line, in 1973. Immigrants were being beaten, they were being turned over to immigration authorities, and that really bothered a lot of people.
Chavez even used a slur we won't repeat, one he stopped using after pressure mounted.
And he understood, I think, eventually that going after immigrants made no sense. He was effectively going after the same people he was supposed to represent. To think of Chavez in one-dimensional terms was doing no one any favors.
Why bring it up? Why call complicated a man for who so many is a hero? It's a question being asked of numerous American icons.
That, people's attention spans are small and they're flooded by information. So it's important that we talk about the essence of a person's life and the contributions that they've made.
Today, most define Chavez by the essence of his movement.
A tribute to a great man and a great movement.
President Obama declared his monument a national park, and March 31st, a federally recognized holiday. It's observed or celebrated in 11 states.
Keeping the promises I made to the American people.
And when President Biden took office, many were quick to notice a bust of Chavez behind his desk.
That means that Americans are paying attention to Mexican-American history, to Latinx history, that our stories are being told, that we are considered part of America.
The American story of Cesar Chavez is complex, far more than a few minutes can cover. But his story is intertwined with history, as is the movement he led.
He was a deeply flawed human being, and that doesn't take away from the accomplishments of his union, of his movement, and of the many other people who were so critical to his movement.
In Keene, California, I'm Matt Pearl.